Day 2 in the books for the Bills, and the players are going to have the day off tomorrow before returning to the field on Saturday. This morning, though, before practice, it was defensive coordinator Jim Leonard's turn to speak with the media, and he spoke quite a bit on what could be coming for Ed Oliver.
You got to make teams find him. If you know where a guy's going to be, it's a little bit easier for an offense to game plan. The front structures we're going to run, it's going to be more multiple than what they've done here in the past, and that frees up a guy like Ed.
Following practice, new addition DJ Moore. He also spoke with the media, and he has been a constant supply of highlights through the 2 days. And with that, he spoke on the budding relationship between him and quarterback Josh Allen.
Just getting out here early and just going back and forth like we are today. Constant communication on the field between the 2 days, and we just going to keep building.
You can listen back to everyone who spoke today and yesterday over at our website, WGR550.com, or on the Odyssey app. And coverage of training camp on WGR is presented by Fiegel Car and Joyce, your border attorneys, by Outlet Liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy. Case, what's your outlet? And by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. Do stay tuned. We'll get the latest from camp. Sal Capaccio going to join the show a little bit later on at 4. More bad news for Carolina. After a second opinion, rookie wide receiver Chris Brazzell is going to undergo season-ending surgery to repair his torn LCL. And then on the flip side of things, Bengals edge rusher Shmar Stewart avoids disaster after he is now confirmed to have suffered a hyperextended knee. He had to leave yesterday's practice on the cart. It was an ugly video, but just a hyperextended knee. But he is expected to be down a couple of weeks, that according to head coach Zach Taylor. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
They have this Panther sound effect that is just the cheesiest, stupidest sounding thing. Big voice guy going, Panther goal scored by Sam Reinhart. Where'd you get that thing?
I trapped it. Been keeping it in my bathroom at the motel, feeding it old pizza.
It's Mike Schopp.
If you're calm, that wondrous big cat will be calm too. But if you're scared, that beautiful death machine will do what God made it to do. Namely, eat you with a smile on its face.
And the Bulldog. On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm looking. There goes Brayton. Could probably tell me how to print something.
Brayton could absolutely do it. Yes.
I'll bet he could. He'll be here tomorrow. Okay, the problem solved. I realize I'm here. Hi, Mike's off the next 2 days. I'm Bulldog. Happy to be here with y'all. Hope we got I think a fun show planned. Some good things to kick around together. If you are so inclined to join me, I would encourage that and enjoy that. Well, I would hope to enjoy it. I mean, I can't know. What you're going to say, and maybe I won't enjoy it, but maybe you out there in the audience would. So, I mean, either way, I'm willing to fall on that. But as I'm starting, I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about tomorrow, and really, I have a show to do right now, and I should not be thinking about tomorrow because it's 3:04. I've got 4 hours. To fill, hopefully with lively conversation and maybe some witticisms. I don't know. But I have a show to do, and I should be taking my cues from the Bills, right? Because they one practice at a time. They can't make the Super Bowl on day one of training camp, rain or no rain. But I'm distracted because I have a plan for tomorrow. Mike is going to be off tomorrow too, and I thought it might be fun for the three of us. It turns out G's not going to be here, but Owen will be. My son will be filling in for G on this shift because he needs the day off. G does. And so I thought, whether G was going to be here or not, I thought it would be fun for the three of us to maybe do a thing that we haven't done in a very, very long time. Again, this is for tomorrow, not today, but just allow me to just explain why I'm distracted. I just realized as I sat down, I thought, I don't get in here until 2:55 now because there's a show before ours, which I'm happy about. I like Brad and Tim. I consider them both friends and excellent at what they do. So I'm glad they're here. But one of the downsides is I don't get to sit down at my work computer until 2:55. So I sat down and I thought, oh yeah, I wanted to print the depth chart for the Bills, because I'm thinking tomorrow, Zach, myself, and Owen will, in between guest hits, draft preseason fantasy football. This is something Greg Bauk thought of years and years and years ago when he was our producer, and the three of us did it, Mike, myself, and Greg. And I don't remember how much fun it was to follow as it turned out. But whatever, it's a fantasy draft, but you're drafting like it's a fantasy draft where Shane Buechele will get drafted way before Josh Allen, right? It's a fantasy draft where maybe if I were ranking I don't want to give anything away because Zach is sitting right here and I think he's listening. Pretty sure, yeah, he winced when I said that. So I guess
Here
that
and
means
there.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do anything different, I think, if I were you. If I were stacking the prospects for this, like trying to figure out where everybody should be, I think Frank Gore Jr. might be the most, like 101 is, sorry, Mike's not here. I don't know the fantasy jargon. 101, Frank Gore might be the guy that you would stack at the very top of the, sorry to use stack, that's also a fantasy thing. Anyway, that's the guy you would probably put on top. Anyway, I wanted to print out the depth charts. I thought we're going to be in here drafting guys we, aren't super familiar with, and it'd be helpful to be crossing out names as we go. So I thought, I'll just print a copy of that. And I don't know, it's 2026. I don't know when the last time was that I printed something from this room. I have a feeling it was probably like some USA hockey forms back when Owen was still playing. And I have to fill out like this. Every training camp he went to, every new team he went to, there was forms to fill out, medical release, yada, yada, yada. And like USA Hockey would give you a portal to access all those forms, but you'd have to print them and bring them with you to, Hastings, Minnesota, or wherever the hell we were for New Mexico Ice Wolves training camp, or tryout, whatever it was. Anyways, so it's 5-6 years ago, maybe the last time that I tried to print something from here, and I don't even know, I don't see a print, like there used to be a printer icon on like the bottom of a computer. That's gone. Like, I'm all for not wasting paper. This is not something where I want to print out reams. I want 3 sheets of paper with, I don't think I really need the defense. And we're going to draft defense for sacks with this thing? Probably not. So I just wanted the offensive depth chart, and so it would be easy for us to follow along. But I have no idea how to print. So sorry, I just wasted 4 minutes of all our lives talking about what was distracting me as we started. Good afternoon. I want to talk about whether or not Bills fans have enjoyed the last 5 seasons. I posted on Twitter a little while ago as sort of a point of entry, like, hey, odds makers, Vegas, FanDuel, DraftKings, whomever you want, and it might vary slightly one sports book to another or whatever, but mostly the Bills are considered the AFC favorite, only very slightly. They had the same odds as the Baltimore Ravens for a while, but I think in the last week or so that has changed. They're just slightly better odds than Baltimore. The Rams are in front of the pack, but the Bills are the leading, depending on where you look. But if they're not alone as the top team in the AFC as far as making the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl goes, they're right there. The odds makers are very bullish still on Buffalo. And, I've been wondering, Mike mentioned it a day or two ago, and it sort of strikes me that because he used the word malaise, I think. Like, it's the fan base in a little bit of a malaise, because they've been, we know they've got the best, one of the best, an all-time great playing quarterback, and that is a meter mover like no other in pro sports. If you've got that position locked down with not just a guy that's, we're not talking about Baker Mayfield here who can't get Tampa to give him a market contract. We're talking about unquestionably one of the 2 or 3 best guys in the league at the position. So that's an elevator, and that keeps you in the conversation, but there's more than just that. And so outside of Western New York, I think the Bills are viewed as they have been viewed since they broke through maybe midway through the 2020 season. They are a bona fide Super Bowl contender again. And it strikes me, like Mike has said that a couple times, like the fan base, maybe there's a malaise, and maybe this is indicative of that. But whether I've been in here with him or by myself, like this is the time of the year where we're kind of in and out because we got to squeeze in vacation before football season starts. And so, we haven't been saddled up in writing through lots of fan opinions about what this Bills season is going to be. Mostly the interactions I've had with our audience in the last month or so about the Bills have been, just late last week and early this week, the uniform thing, the uniform change, or the new uniform. It's not a uniform change. It's a complement to their uniform closet. These gray Nickel City jerseys and pants and helmets that they introduced formally on Monday. We'd seen them for a while. Like, a lot of opinions about that. Before that, it was the stadium and the haves and the have-nots. Like, as far as who gets access to a practice, who doesn't get access to a practice. Oh, the people who didn't have access to the first practice now have a practice for themselves, and the people who had access to the first practice are mad about that. And, like, there's all of that. And that has nothing to do with what you think the Buffalo Bills are going to be in 2026, quite obviously, right? It's mostly just nonsense. I think ultimately, and I don't even know, I didn't want to invest too heavily in the conversation about the practices, as I just felt like it was kind of a put on, even. Like the guy who called the morning show that my kid yelled at, I felt was like a stunt man. I don't believe that was like a genuine opinion. I mean, it could be, but it just felt like, let me see if I can rile up the radio guys, and my kid took the bait, which, no shame in that. It's happened to me plenty of times sitting in the room. Easy for me to say from, far away, like, oh, you should have not done that or whatever. Anyway, that whole conversation was just tedious and boring to me. It's like a lot of yelling for yelling's sake. I just thought it was asinine. I'm talking here. The point is, I don't have, I think, lots of evidence that there's a malaise. I don't feel like I'm hearing that, unless what I'm hearing is you not calling me about it, which could be evidence of a malaise. It also could be evidence that you think I suck or the show sucks, which would be problematic for my employers, and probably eventually me. But I'm hoping that that's not it. But I don't feel like I have a good read on the fan base right now, is what I'm saying. I'm admitting that I don't know. Not that I always sort of balk at anytime we go on shows in other towns, and like, I try not to ask our guests from Kansas City or Houston, like, hey, what are the fans saying? Because I don't know. Like, we talk to, if it's a busy day, we talk to 10 people, maybe 12 in a day when it's busy. On a lot of days, we don't talk to anybody. So I don't ever want to represent that I know what the fan base is feeling at large. And of course, there's going to be a variety of opinions. I guess what I'm telling you is I haven't heard many of them. I haven't heard, I'm lacking for variety. I'm lacking for any. I just feel like there's not been just pick them up and put them down. Yeah, I think the Bills are going to win 12 games. I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. I'm with Vegas. Whatever it is, I don't feel like I've got a good handle on that. And so I wanted today to sort of see if you wanted to help me. I don't want to say figure it out, because, again, there's not going to be anything scientific about what we do here. But I'm just kind of curious. Like, it's this a vibe check, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. And the reason I mentioned, have the last 5 years been fun, is because I know what challenges the team being as excellent as they have been for as many years in a row without delivering on the promise of a championship does to a fan base. It can wear you out. eventually and sort of get you to a place where you're just waiting until January. I often think of, I think it was a friend of Mike's, or at least an acquaintance of Mike's, who maybe 3 seasons ago, going into a Kansas City game, a regular season Kansas City game, said something, I don't know if it was to Mike personally or on Twitter or what, like, I can't wait for the Bills to beat the Chiefs and me to feel nothing. And that has always sort of sat with me because I try to avoid feeling nothing. The reason I understand why it happens is it's happened to me. I don't think it's happening now with the Bills because all of this news got me, I'm not taking anything for granted going into this year because we've got a new head coach and we've got a new defense and it's not the same old. And I'm very curious to see if they can maintain the level of excellence they've had for most of the last 5 years with all of that new stuff. So that in of itself keeps me from taking it for granted. The one time in my life I remember not really paying attention to a regular season was one of the best regular seasons the Sabres have ever had. And it was on the heels of losing to Carolina in the 06 conference finals. The 06-07 season that followed, the Sabres won the President's Trophy. They won 10 games in a row to start the season. And, I mean, they had a roaring, excellent season. And I have admitted numerous times, if this is too repetitive, I apologize if you've heard this story, but I did not enjoy that season at all. I watched the games, but all I was thinking about was, by maybe halfway through the season, was, man, how are they going to match up with Anaheim in the final? Like, that was literally, by Christmas time, that was what I was spending my time thinking about. I even would watch the Ducks just to sort of get a feel for them. I want to be ready for this. And hey, dumbass, they never made the final. They never played the Ducks. It didn't happen, right? And they lost in the conference final just like they did the year before. And I let a whole season, a President's Trophy winning season, go by without really enjoying the wins. I mean, hockey's different. There's 82. This year there'll be 84 games as opposed to just 16 or now 17 with the NFL. So the rhythm of it's a little different and the urgency is a little different behind each game. But you get the point. I did not see the trees. I did not smell the flowers. I mostly was just worried about what was going to happen when summer came. And summer never came. They were home at the same time they were the previous year. And like, oh, okay, note to self, don't do that again, right? So I've mostly avoided that. And but I understand, like, it can be somewhat frustrating to see the Bills and hear the Bills talked about the way they're being talked about again this year. Super Bowl favorite in the AFC. Even with a first-time new head coach and a new first-time in the NFL defensive coordinator and lots of personnel changes, it's still full speed ahead, mostly because Josh Allen's still here and the offense, other than a left guard, is completely intact and has added DJ Moore. So, like, I get it. But I wonder if Bills fans are as excited as that. Or does that still excite you? And that's what got me to asking, like, have you enjoyed the last 5 years? Or are you frustrated? Are you mad? Are you still mad about 13 seconds? Like, it's a frustrating thing to think about. I don't ever like when any highlight from that game comes across my face occasionally on social media. It's like, I don't need to think about that. But in the end, you think about the 2021 season, yes, bitter disappointment at the end. It was a great season. The week before, they annihilated the Patriots. It was amazing. I mean, it felt so good at the time. So I still think, like, there's a lot to be said for enjoying that ride. But, of course, we all want the payoff at the end. So, I don't know. I'm wondering if we can maybe have both conversations at once, because I think they're obviously running somewhat concurrently here. How bullish on the Bills are you? Are you like Vegas Super Bowl favorite in the AFC? Excited expectation-wise for them? And how would you look back on the seasons since the 2020 season. Opportunity missed, of course, with Josh Allen squarely in his prime and at the top of his game, peak of his powers, all that. But they've been great seasons. They're 12-5, 13-4. I know there's an 11-6 in there, and I know they didn't win the division last year, but it's year over year. Man, September to January is awesome. Yes, peaks and valleys, and especially that 11-6 year where, there's the Philadelphia game and there's a lot, right? Every year is a ride. But overall, they have been the highlights of my professional career to be on the air talking about this team. I swear to God, that's true. Before they broke the drought, I was contemplating getting out of the business. I can't keep doing this. It's just too much Groundhog Day for me. Now, this is also kind of a Groundhog Day. That's why I think the question might be a little tricky. If you want to sit with it, you want to call in and give me your opinion about it, I'd love to hear you on it. Do you look back at 5 seasons here, or it's 6, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24? Anyway, is that fondly, you enjoyed that, or are you just mad that they let opportunities slip away? Maybe it's a little of both. I mean, it's fair, I think, to have regret. It's not like we had anything to do with it, but especially the close calls, the near misses are hard to live with, and they're heartbreaking. But all in all, it's still been the best ride short of winning it all. So at least that's how I look at it. I'm just curious where everybody's at here. 803-0550 is the number. We'll get fired up right now. Rick is first up this segment. Hi, Rick. Thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, Bulldog. Thanks for the time. It was a transition. It went from optimism when we drafted Josh Allen to high expectations for almost 5 years, and now it's nothing but frustration and apathy. And I think the thing that probably drives fans nuts the most is hope is a strategy. It's like we hope that the wide receivers last year were good enough, but they weren't. And he says the top priority is to protect Josh Allen. Well, when your receivers can't get open, Josh Allen is back there just getting annihilated and running for his life. And then, this year, we don't know who the off-ball linebacker is. Bernard's already out. We're not sure if the defensive ends are going to get pressure on the quarterback. We don't know if the run game is going to gouge us like it did last year. The receiving core is okay. I don't know. We kind of hope that it's going to be good. And, it's just I'm just kind of burnt out on it. I mean, and then on top of that, it's costing us a house payment to go to a game. I'm going to the Detroit game. I live in Colorado, and I spent $900 on 2 tickets. I mean, each, not for both. And I just think all of the, shine as far as a new season and a new stadium, people are just like, I'm tired. I'm emotionally drained. And that's where I'm at.
All right, Rick, you're breaking up there at the end, but those are some strong opinions about this. I'm curious how much company you've got. But that is indicative of the word I mentioned Mike using, malaise, I think, and a variety of factors contributing there. Zach is next up. Hi, Zach. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hey, Bulldog. Nice talking to you here. I think on the last 5 years, is it safe to say, hell yeah, I've enjoyed it? I certainly, there's been heartbreak plenty of times, but, in my adult life so far, I think some of my favorite moments of my adult life have happened at Bills games. So it'd feel, despite the losses and whatnot, it'd feel disingenuous to even consider any answer but hell yeah here. I mean, it's been so fun, and going forward, I'm optimistic. I think this team needed a significant change a while ago, and while I didn't necessarily agree with the McDermott firing this year, something needed to change, and I think change can be exciting. And I think I'm starting to get excited about it personally.
Zach, thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's very well put. Because I also was not like, look, I was stunned that they made the move they made, But at the same time, I can absolutely understand why they felt the need to do it. I'm not entirely in love with the process or how the owner sounds about all of it, but just put that over there. Like, singularly, can I support a coaching change? Yeah. You tried 9 years, and these last 6, you've been a contender level status team, and you haven't gotten there. So try something else. And I can totally get behind that. And it also does, this is what camp. This is the one area where I think it might be really important that they did make a change, because camp gets going. And it's different people talking, or a different person talking, a few different people talking. I mean, Joe Brady is now in charge. He's the head coach. Jim Leonard's new. There's a couple of new players. And just the idea, like 2 practices in, rain-soaked as they were, it's like, maybe DJ Moore's pretty good. Right? This sort of starts to, as a fan, that starts to percolate on you a little bit. All right, good job, first 2 callers, 803-0550. Lines are wide open for you. You want to get in here. How bullish on the Bills? How high are your expectations? Vegas says AFC Super Bowl favorite. And I don't know where the fan base is at. I got 2 guys so far. One is sort of, wake me up when they do something they haven't done already. And the other one's like, this ride has been awesome. And I'm more, this ride has been awesome guy, but I understand the other one. Where are you at? And have you enjoyed this contention window, even though it has ended in bitter disappointment each of the last 6 seasons? 803-0550 is the number. Sal will join me at 4 for a rundown of what went down today at the second practice of training camp. And then Matt Perino from the Shout Podcast and Syracuse.com in upstate New York will also be with me at 5 to do more of the same. But plenty of time for your calls right after this. Mike is off today. I'm the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
For more comfort.
Now's the perfect time to make yourself comfortable with a new electric heating and cooling system from Belknap.
In Western New York, summer and winter bring extreme temperature conditions. Make yourself comfortable with Mitsubishi electric heat pumps, designed to keep your home cool in the summer and warm in the winter, no matter how hot or cold it gets outside. Call Belknap today to learn more.
I'm Gary Garfalo, president of Belknap. We work on your schedule. We don't charge more for weekends and evenings. That's why we say,
give Belknap a ring.
I think number one is you got to make teams find him. If you know where a guy's going to be, it's a little bit easier for an offense to game plan. The front structures we're going to run, it's going to be more multiple than what they've done here in the past, and that frees up a guy like Ed. We have some experience around him, some guys that know how to play off of interior D linemen, right? You look at a Bradley Chubb, you look at Greg Rousseau. Like, Greg's obviously had a ton of reps with Ed. So the more experience you have around a guy like Ed, it frees him up and it allows him to kind of be the key piece of it and guys to play off of him.
That is Bills defensive coordinator Jim Leonard talking about Ed Oliver. That got a lot of people's attention this morning, I think. I know I saw the morning show. This stuff is all happening so early. It's all live during the morning show, and they get to react to it, which is fun. We've had that luxury lots of times in the afternoons with, news conferences and whatnot, especially Mondays after games when the head coach talks and then both the coordinators talk during our show. But anyway, Oliver being moved around like that, okay, indicative of a new day and a new plan there. I hope they have. I'm sure they do. It sounds like they have a plan in mind. How well it will work, how well they've got all the pieces in place, remains to be seen. But that's one interesting little nugget from Leonard today, was the idea of moving Oliver around in a way that, he even says it plainly. I don't know. I don't think it's being perceived as a shot at the way the Bills did things under McDermott. But he says plainly, like, they didn't really do a lot of that, and long story short, they're planning to do it. Move Oliver around and find ways to get him in one-on-one matchups. I think Bean even said yesterday when he spoke that one thing that Leonard really wanted to emphasize when he was going through the interview process was that he had a plan for Oliver. Like, I think this guy's a hellraiser. He is someone who can be a difference maker, and I got a way to try to help facilitate that. So let's see how that goes. 803-0550 is the number. Kind of like a summertime vibe check. It's been said in this room over the course of the last few weeks that the fan base is a little muted right now, and it strikes me that I don't have a lot of evidence one way or the other, because I don't feel like I've been getting a lot of feedback on the team on the field or what you expect the team on the field to be. I know they've just only now gotten on the field, so want to be careful there. But mostly it's been, jerseys and the stadium and who's going to this practice and who's not, and is that right and that's wrong, and what did my PSL buy me, and all that sort of stuff that has really nothing to do at all with where you're at on the team going into this year. So that's where we're starting today. 803-0550 is the number. We'll get more on training camp in about a half an hour when Sal Capaccio joins me. Matt is first up this segment. Hi, Matt. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Thanks, Bulldog. And as we all kind of come out of the hibernation here and get back into calling, just wanted to first say how impressed and how proud you should be of Owen during that Sabres run, man, in the spring. He became must-listen, especially during that Canadian series. And it was just really cool to see his maturity throughout the spring.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
He's really, really great. But on the Bills side, yeah, I think, in terms of the temp check, you asked me about a week or two ago. I was probably a little cooler. I think it was kind of realizing, look, we're in year 9 of Josh Allen. We're starting afresh with a new coach, new coordinators. And I was probably a little bit more pessimistic, but made the pilgrimage over to the stadium recently and got to check out kind of the whole experience. And I think that's just such a good reminder of, what this contention window has been. I think without Josh and without what we've done, it'd be really hard to imagine building a stadium of this stature. And then you roll that right into what Leonard has said today, how Brady came out yesterday. They might say the word right a few too many times, but ultimately I like the way that, they're rolling with it. And this defense has me excited. I think the initial scouting out of camp seems really, really positive, and it's kind of shifted my entire viewpoint. So I think, as soon as we get pads on, we'll be feeling even better, and then that optimism will go from jerseys and stadiums into, what's on the field.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. I heard Brad and Tim talking about the saying right at the end of a statement. You are not going to find me picking apart people's vocabulary habits. It's not. I'm going to stay out of that one. That's not a fight I need to get into. I got my own. I got a long list of my own problems in that department. Josh is next up. Hi, Josh. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hi, Bulldog. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's just such a really interesting conversation because the way that I kind of view it, the fan base reacting to the last several years, is the fact that we've had such high highs, but also such low lows, that I think it almost kind of balances the reaction of the fan base out a bit. Like if you're having chicken wings, and you want to, tame the spice, you have like a glass of milk or something, it's like there's like a neutrality that's kind of, attained when you have these incredible moments. I mean, I was down in Florida for grad school recently, and just being able to just talk about the Bills and Josh Allen, it was nice to kind of gloat a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I think I think it's really easy to get stuck on the negatives and 13 seconds and all that. But I mean, I would not trade the world for the highs that have come from the last several years. And I think it also kind of plays out in the fact, like, last year we said, hey, we're a second half team, right? So that those first halves we were having, some stress levels were high, but then in the second half we were able to really enjoy it. I think that's kind of like, a visualization, so to say, of
a microcosm of the 6 years, kind of. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, thank you, Josh. Appreciate the phone call. I like the caller before too, mentioning the stadium as a piece of this. Like, I don't have like a long form, well thought out position on the stadium's place in all of this, but it's so new and so different that I wonder if there's any sort of like the lack of familiarity that's exciting, but it's also kind of like, do you miss knowing where you're going to be and where you're going to meet your friends and like everybody's tailgate spot and like a lot of that stuff. I am very much often enough, I guess, to my detriment, a creature of habit. Like I like to know like where am I going? Where do I got to be? What am I going to do? Where am I parking? All that. Like I crave that. We're going on a some sort of harbor cruise tomorrow, and I wasn't involved at all in like the whole planning or any. And then like, where's the place? What time do we got to be there? Where am I going to park? I got to know that 36 hours ahead of time because I'm a weirdo that way, right? The stadium is such a massive change. There's no question. It's overall a positive, despite my misgivings about the video announcing the jerseys and whatever. Like I recognize what it means. It's one of the most meaningful developments in my lifetime with this football team that happened. So it's momentous. But it also is maybe a little bittersweet. The stadium across the street has got a wrecking ball, and I don't know. There's just a lot packed in there that, like, and everyone's going to react to it differently. It strikes me as I'm talking with the first few people who've gotten through today about enjoying the last 6 seasons of contention that the Bills have had. And despite the disappointment, like, would you look back at it and say, like, that's been some of the most fun I've ever had? Like I am. I mean, I'm telling you, professionally and personally, those streams, they weave together all the time for me. So if professionally I'm enjoying the Bills, personally I am too. I mean, it's just there's no separating that. And it has been a joyride. But it does. I'm reminded of a conversation I remember having I don't know how soon after the 21 season it was, but it might have been like at this time of the year, going into the 22 season, that I did a show, like just like a day like today, maybe in the summertime. Mike was away. I'm by myself. And I sort of stumbled into, maybe a caller even brought it to the table, comparing the drought to the disappointment of 13 seconds. And I ended up in a conversation with listeners and was stunned at how many people would assert to me, publicly on the radio, not that, you out there in the audience know who all these people are calling in, but still, I want to call the radio station and I got to tell this guy that 13 seconds, a bitter playoff loss, is worse than the drought. And I mean, it still blows my mind to this day. And I guess, like, to an extent, it shouldn't, because everyone's different. But it's such a window into how differently people who have the same interest can be wired or are wired. Because I can't even fathom. I mean, I said earlier, and I'm not being overly dramatic. Like, I really mean it. If the drought had kept going another 2 or 3 years, I don't know that I'd still be here doing this job. It was so mundane. There was just no longer, and unlike the Sabres, we mostly, during their drought, were able to ignore. Because for the back end of it here, the Bills were excellent, and football, good or bad, there's always, one of the dangers of working by yourself. And sometimes you got a cough and you can't reach the button in time. And there's no one else to talk in your place. You get to a place where you just can't ever stop. Football just goes on. It never stops. Even when the Bills are terrible, even when they're in the throes of a 17-year playoff drought, we're still talking about them every day. And it was so boring to me. I hated it. I'm just going to be, I hated it. The Sabres drought, kind of like, okay, they're not fun to talk about anymore. I think it's a tune out for the audience. That's okay. We'll just talk about the Bills. Like, that became the thing. There was no way to do that with the Bills. You couldn't turn it off. And so it was a horrible existence. And to have, perfectly legitimate opinions about it being better than the bitter disappointment of losing a game like they lost in the 21 divisional round in Kansas City, the 13 seconds game. I can't even really process that. But I know it happened. I mean, it happened live on this show that people were telling me, oh, I prefer the drought to this. What? You just won 13 games and had a great season, and your quarterback has become a rock star animal monster in the league, and you're telling me you'd rather be living with Trent Edwards still because it was easy to be detached, and now this pain is too much? I mean, I don't get that. But that feels like a little sidebar in this conversation about a malaise or boredom or burnout or whatever it might be, because the Bills are still, again, a contending level team, and I'm not sure where we're all at as a fan base. 803-0550 is the number. Still time for more of your calls before we hit the top of the hour, and then Sal will come in, tell us what went down at training camp, and there'll be lots of time for more of your calls after that. Mike is away today. I'm the Bulldog, and this is WGR.
Sin so long, all the fields are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over. It's about time. Oh, sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. Roller coaster. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster. Roller coaster.
Shh. I don't have time to waste listening to Malcolm and Angus Young here, but I'm sorry. I'm really grooving. Got to hustle. Get a couple calls in here, at least one before the top of the hour break here. Lee is first up this segment. Hi, Lee. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
I just have to say that I think, as a Bills fan, and I've been a Bills fan since, the early 70s, that you got to look at the big picture. All of the memories and the things that we've been through as Bills fans for all those years. And, in the 90s, we know what happened. but to have the 5 years that we've had, which has been exciting, incredible football every single game, and putting us on the edge of our seat, it's been incredible. And I have no feelings to where we're not going to continue that, because we've got the pieces. We're on that second to top rung of the ladder, and it's just getting to that next rung that's going to put us, into where we need to go. And that's, obviously the big game. So I'm excited for this year. Can't wait. And the last 5 years have been incredible.
All right, Lee, thank you very much. I mostly agree across the board. Brad, real quick here. We got about a minute. Brad.
Thanks so much for taking my call here. After how painful that 17-year drought was, especially for someone not from Buffalo who grew up on Bills stuff, man, that was brutal. I'll take the last 5 years any single day over that. I mean, yeah, we haven't gotten to the Super Bowl, but every year, just like when I was during the drought, we're on the cusp of ending the drought. I think this team is on the cusp of getting to the Super Bowl, and that excites me, and I don't see how anyone in this market wouldn't be excited. Just don't turn out entitled like Patriots fans. That's all I ask, Buffalo.
All right, Brad, thanks. Yeah, I think maybe there's a little of that already. That's a part of the problem. You do get spoiled by the success. So, yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. The drought, we would sit in here for weeks, years on end, just like, I just want to have a quarterback so I can be good and have an opportunity to actually be talked about on the shows and be like a contender. That's all I really want. And like, blammo, there it is. I mean, I'll take it any day of the week, honestly. Quick timeout. We'll get more calls at the bottom of the hour, but Sal Capaccio is straight ahead on training camp today. Bills defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard talking about Ed Oliver. That got a lot of people's attention this morning, I think. I know I saw the morning show. This stuff is all happening so early. It's all live during the morning show, and they get to react to it, which is fun. We've had that luxury lots of times in the afternoons with, news conferences and whatnot, especially Mondays after games when the head coach talks and then both the coordinators talk during our show. But anyway, Oliver being moved around like that, okay, indicative of a new day and a new plan there. I hope they have. I'm sure they do. It sounds like they have a plan in mind. How well it will work, how well they've got all the pieces in place, remains to be seen. But that's one interesting little nugget from Leonhard today, was the idea of moving Oliver around.
Day 2 of Bills training camp is in the books, and now the players, they're going to get tomorrow off before returning to the field on Saturday. Before practice, it was defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard's turn to speak with the media, and one of the big things he had to talk about is what could be coming this year for Ed Oliver.
You got to make teams find him. If you know where a guy's going to be, it's a little bit easier for an offense to game plan. The front structures we're going to run, it's going to be more multiple than what they've done here in the past, and that frees up a guy like Ed.
Following practice, we heard from a number of players, including new addition DJ Moore, who has been a constant supply for highlights through 2 days. He spoke on Joe Brady and the change of him going from offensive coordinator to head coach, as, of course, Moore was with him in Carolina.
Now that he's in this major role as being a head coach, I feel like he's made it more known that this is the details and how we're going about things. With specific guys, he's counting on you got to wear a hard hat every day with him. He wants the best out of everybody.
You can listen back to everyone who spoke today and yesterday up at our website, WGR550.com, and coverage of training camp on WGR is presented by Fiegel Car and Joyce, your border attorneys, by Outlet Liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? And by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-MILLION. And do stay tuned. We'll get the latest from camp. Sal Capaccio going to join the show next. More bad injury news for Carolina. After a second opinion, rookie wide receiver Chris Abrazel is going to undergo season-ending surgery to repair his torn LCL. And then on the flip side of things, Bengals edge rusher Shamar Stewart, he avoids disaster. He has suffered just a hyperextended knee after having to leave yesterday's practice on a cart, though he is expected to be down for a couple of weeks, according to head coach Zach Taylor. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Oh, you've come along at an opportune time. Doesn't get any better than Sal Capaccio's daily training camp report. Sal joins us now on the West Her hotline. Training camp coverage here on WGR is presented by Fiegel Car and Joyce, your border attorneys, and brought to you by Outlet Liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? And by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-MILLION. Good afternoon, Mr. Capaccio.
Good afternoon, Bulldog. How are you?
I'm good. Do you want to crack it? I don't know if you've been listening. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. At what I spent the first hour of the show talking about, just sort of looking back at the last 5 or 6 years, and are you more grateful or frustrated? And also, what got me there is thinking about just where the fans are on this team this year. Mike has used the word malaise a few times. One caller already this hour says we're burned out by the misses in the playoffs. I still look back at 5 or 6 years of this contention window and think it's been the time of my life. I'm disappointed they haven't won, but I wouldn't trade it. I would trade it for a championship, but I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
Yeah, first of all, let me say I had not been listening, so I'm glad you told me. Matt Bovey and I actually just wrapped up our daily, training camp podcast a little bit before coming on with you, and then actually turned on the Yankees game and saw Jason Dominguez get a triple but overslide the bag and be tagged out.
Yes, I'm watching too.
So I'm in a bit of a fiery mood after that one. I mean, to be honest with you, I was
Scoreless
really,
game
really
too.
mad.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? He was safe by a mile, and he overslides third base on a leadoff triple. It's unbelievable. Anyway, I digress. I'm pretty mad about that. So that being said, I think anybody's crazy for not enjoying the last 5 years. The only part of the last 5 years you obviously wouldn't enjoy is the ending. But the journey and ride has been incredible. I mean, let's go back to where this team was. Let's go back to what we were used to for the previous 17 years and not making the playoffs. I mean, to make the playoffs, to be the excitement of week 17, week 18, and where we playing, who we playing, what's the matchup going to be, what's the schedule going to be, how am I making my plans? I mean, that stuff is so cool, right? It was the same thing with the Sabres this year and trying to figure it out at the end. Like, I love that stuff, putting it together because you got there, man. Like, you are one of the only teams. You have a chance here. The previous 17 years, by and large, we were talking about the draft by Thanksgiving, right? I mean, like, it made every season just kind of end sooner. Hockey season can't get here soon enough. Then the hockey team wasn't very good. And it just made for a longer off season. Like, I agree with you. I wouldn't trade. And some of the players we've got to watch, having your team mentioned on almost every single national highlight TV show all the time, as opposed to what it was, I think we quickly forget. I know there is something, and I agree with people when they say, like, I really miss Sunday 1 o'clock games. There's too many of these other games. I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? The team was so kind of irrelevant for 17 years that no one ever talked about them. And at least, like, you have that all the time. And I think that's cool. I know the results haven't been the same.
Yep.
How do people feel now? I understand when someone says, like, I don't know about burnout if I'd use that particular term. What I feel from fans is I think fans are just so guarded against buying in because they don't want to get hurt again.
Sal, I'm sorry. I got to interrupt you. Jazz Chisholm just made the third out getting caught in a rundown between first and second.
Oh, my God.
I don't know if you were watching. All right, sorry.
I just looked to it.
Anyway, I stopped you, and I probably not at a bad time. I probably shouldn't have done that. But
they're the dumbest base running team I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
I had to.
Did you see last night what happened last night? Seriously, real quick.
I zonked out. I saw 4-1, and I went to bed early. And so I missed the comeback and the extra innings loss.
Okay, real quick, I got to tell you, it's 4-0 actually after one inning in Schlittler's
Oh, right.
pitching.
No, I was watching that. Yeah,
right?
I saw 4-1
Then they score
eventually.
Then they score 4 runs in the 8th. They go to extra innings, and nobody scores in the 10th. And then in the 11th, the Yankees are up 6-5 with 2 outs. They are in the field with 2 outs and a runner on third. And the catcher decides to try to pick him off at third and throws into left field, and that's how the White Sox tied the game in the bottom of the 11th. And then they go to the 12th. The Yankees have the bases loaded and can't score with 1 out, and then the White Sox won. So, yeah, that's how it
I'm sorry to be chuckling. That's incredible.
It was amazing. Never seen anything like it. I know, right? Did you hear what I said about, like, the fans? I think fans are just too – yeah, you're just – it's way too, like, I don't want to buy in and be hurt again. Right? And I think I get that. I feel that part of it. I have a lot of fans, though, lately, more the last couple weeks since training camp has opened, and I've been at camp, and people talk to me, and you go up to fans, you say hi. And I'm starting to feel more like more fans are the other way now again, which is like, no, let's go, baby. It's football. We have Josh Allen. We're going to win,
Yeah, once it gets here, I think it can change. And you see 2 or 3 positive tweets about DJ Moore, you're like, oh, well, maybe that's gonna, I think that happens, and it can be, more substantive, a thing that's more substantive than just a couple of catches. But you know what I mean? Like, once they're on the field, I think if you're an optimistic person by nature, you will end up leaning more optimistic once you see them, even though they're only in T-shirts and shorts. Right? I mean, I think that's a natural thing that does happen. Yeah, well, I'm glad. I'm not glad you weren't listening, which is, fine. You were working. Yeah. But I really wanted you to take that question because I feel like you are. I mean, you're I think the most recognizable one of us out and about anywhere, just because of Pat McAfee and everything else. So you must have more of those conversations than I have. You go more places with Little League and whatever it is. I go to a bar on Hurdle and I play golf at Delaware Park. That's mostly.
Yeah, but people also see you
life.
out. The first thing might come up is the Sabres. You know what I mean? People see me, they want to talk about the Bills. I mean, that's the way it goes. Right. And I get it. And I do get a lot of people, and it's cool. And I think people who've met me would agree. I always tell people, yeah, I mean, if they want to, I'm there to talk about it, right? Because I get a lot of people who say oh, I know you probably talk about it every day. You don't want to talk about it. It's work. I'm like, no, but I get to do that every day. Maybe you don't. So it's cool. What do you want to say? I'm fine with that. So I like to hear the fans' opinions on things. And generally, for a lot of part of the summer, it was really just a lot of caution about the new coach. And that's something that's really kind of a deal with a lot of the fans and wondering, what is this new coach going to be like? I don't know. Some people have really loved it. Some people have hated it as far as the, change from Sean McDermott. And there's been a lot of people, I feel, who are just more I don't know, man. Not that they say it outright. You can just feel it when you talk to them that they've just had so many close call endings that have not gone their way that they're tired of buying in, or at least reluctant to until it finally gets there.
Yeah, I get that, but I think what that is an off-season position. I think, we just talked about. I think once the switch starts to flip, and maybe someone who's really dug in on that feeling, it'll take a little longer, but something will probably get their attention between now and September that has them oh yeah, I mean the stadium could be that thing. I mean, what a huge piece of that is in this year with a whole new, all new surroundings. I was wondering, Sal, as I was working my way through this, after talking to a few callers, whether the newness of the stadium it contributes to some sense of unease because everything's new, right? Parking, tailgate, lot, whatever, your old friends, whatever. I know a lot of that stuff can still be the same, especially the satellite lots, but it's just traditions, that change. As much as you're excited about the new stadium, there could be some trepidation about it because you're going to miss the old thing,
100%. I get it. And, I think this probably happens everywhere, but I really believe that Buffalo is a very traditional place, and more than most markets. We're not the biggest city in the world, and we like a lot of things that have been in place a long time. I don't think we're a city that enjoys change as much, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It can be, but what I mean is we like what we like, and we're used to what we like, and we're very traditional, and we're very proud of what we've had and what we've done. And that stadium's been standing for 53 years, and there's a certain aura about, what it means and what it represents to not be there anymore. And having the pricing where it is now compared to what it was for many years for a lot of people, it's a bit of a sticker shock to people. It's something that it's taking a lot to get used to for people and adapt to that change. Now, I think that change can be great, too, in getting into, the modern era of what we have to do here to have an NFL team. But I think it's a lot of it, Bulldog, which is all of that is probably a bit overwhelming for people, to be quite honest with you.
Sal Capaccio on the Westher hotline with us here. He was out at day 2 of practice for the Bills at training camp in Rochester. So what was the story or the stories, hopefully there's more than one, of the day as you saw it, Sal?
Just writing about this at WGR550.com. I'll have it a little bit after we're off. And the number one story for me today is Michael Hoyt returning to 11 on 11. He had been taking individual reps. He had been, part of mini camp, and then here at training camp when we talked about, okay, that's not a surprise because he was at mini camp. When's he's actually going to join the defense? Well, he joined them today. Now, there's no pads on. They're not tackling people, but it was full speed, 11 on 11 full speed, and Michael Hoyt was out there. And I think that's a very, very big deal for this defense to get him. If he can be ramped up before week 1, and there is optimism definitely that he can play week 1, at the Houston Texans. I think that's massive for this team.
Yeah, okay, and he's a part of a crowded. They've got a lot of guys. It's a little muddier this year because of the 3-4 and where guys like Hoyt, I think, is listed as a linebacker now. So is Rousseau and of course Bradley Chubb and all that. But thinking of them as defensive linemen, so to speak, pass rushers, whatever it is. there's a lot of bodies,
Yeah.
I'm excited about Hoyt too, but you've got Chubb, you've got the rookie, T.J. Parker, you've obviously got Rousseau. There's a lot of variety there.
Yeah, and I don't know how many defensive linemen overall they're going to keep. Matt Perino was pointing out to me today, we were talking about this, that the Broncos kept 12 last year overall, which is a lot, right?
Yeah.
Feels like that, considering what we're used to here in Buffalo. But you have to count all the defensive linemen in that group, which is the Ed Olivers and the Deion Walkers of the world, who are going to be more in the inside, and then your outside linebackers, edge rushers, Greg Rousseau, Bradley Chubb, Michael Hoyt as well. But if you just take that position, let's just say you keep 5, which I think is very, understandable and probably about the right number. Rousseau, Chubb, Hoyt, T.J. Parker, and probably Javon Solomon, who, Brandon Beane talked up a lot this offseason. They really like him and feel that he's very good for this system. They did sign Mike Dana from the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know how much, how much run he'll get, an opportunity, but he has some skin on the wall here. Andre Jones and then Cade Denoff. So you could see those 5, Rousseau, Chubb, Hoyt, Parker, and Solomon. I think that could be your group of 5, and I could understand them keeping 5.
Yeah. While we're on the defensive line here, or just on the defensive front, I guess, because, again, linebackers versus traditional defensive ends, we played a clip, and I think you guys talked about it some this morning when you were on with Joe in the morning show, that what Leonard said yesterday about Ed Oliver got a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, today, actually. I think
it was today? Oh, sorry.
Today.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Today. Duh. Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, he said it today. He met this morning.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was intriguing and interesting. Simple quote. It was basically the ask was about how do you get Ed Oliver to be unlocked and get to another level? And he said, well, first the defense has to be able to find him. And that's great when you think about it. Okay, what does that mean? I tweeted that. Someone in my reply sent me a picture. It said Ed Oliver at the line of scrimmage, and it's a guy that's hiding in a tree. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, you know what I mean? And you're right. Like, is that what he's doing? So I don't think they mean hiding Ed Oliver. Sure, I think in a sense it is. What he means, though, is moving him around so much the defense can't game plan for him. Right? Like, hey, when you go inside your defensive huddle and you say, we're going to run this play because we know we want to attack this spot because this is where Ed Oliver's going to be, this is where Greg Rousseau is going to be, this is where Deion Walker's going to be. The Bills, they don't want that. They want to be able to move around. Ed Oliver might be a little bit more on the edge. Then he might be a little bit, over the guard. And you don't know where he's going to be. And now the offense has to adjust to the defense kind of dictating to them what they're doing. So that's number one. Find where he's going to be. And then from there, try to exploit matchups with Ed Oliver. But I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I thought, going back to yesterday, I know you weren't covering all of the news conferences, but I assume you know a lot of what Brandon Beane said, if not everything Brandon Beane said.
Yep.
Did he not make an example from Leonard's job interview, how he made a point, Leonard did, when he came in to meet with them, to interview for the job, that, like, I have a plan for Ed Oliver. This guy can be a game wrecker for us, but I'm going to tell you how I'm going to use him.
Yeah, and it reminds me of when he was hired, Jim Leonard, he was asked, is there anyone on this defense that you really are excited to put into your defense? Like, you're like, oh, I'm looking at that guy going, oh, I can do something with him. And he said, yes. And he just had a smile on his face. And we don't know who he's talking about. So we were all thinking, it's got to be either, to me, Ed Oliver or Cole Bishop. Like, that's the guy. He thought maybe it's Michael Hoyt. You don't know when he was injured, though. But to me, it's probably Ed Oliver or Cole Bishop. We might know the answer to that now after hearing, Brandon Beane talk yesterday, that a lot of what he's going to do is, moving these guys around. Pressure's going to come from all different spots. You just don't know. And I think he wants to highlight, so to speak, Ed Oliver in that regard.
You mentioned Cole Bishop, and I'm glad you did, because we can pivot to something else that Leonard said this morning. Sorry, it's so early, Sal, that it feels like yesterday that they're doing these things in the 8 o'clock
I like
hour.
These early morning practices.
I'll bet you do. Yeah, way back in the day, Grandpa Bulldog's going to tell everyone a story now. Fredonia, the two-a-days were 8:30 and 2:30. And I loved the 8:30. I loved setting the alarm. Get you say get a coffee, go and start your day. It was a long day because I was hosting a nighttime show then that was 5 hours long. But still, it was awesome. I was so new at this; it was all new. Just being around practice was awesome, and it was a very different time. The guys were way more, guys would just walk to my construction trailer, come hang out on and off the air. It was really, really cool. But I love those early mornings. Bishop is what I wanted to get to, because I saw you post a quote from Leonard about Bishop and any concern the player may have had going into a new scheme. And I even saw my old friend Tony comment on that it, could be just coach speak, but it sounded like good coaching, I think is what he said to you. So tell us what Leonard said about sort of easing any concerns Bishop may have had coming off a year where he kind of had, I think, is it too strong to say he had a breakthrough season last year, Bishop?
Yeah, and I think even that was a word that Leonard used when he have a breakout season. They even said when you have a breakout season, and then there's a scheme change, there might be a little bit of panic. And you can understand that. Anybody can. Like, oh, my God, I found it. I'm here. I've arrived. I'm in the league. I'm doing well. Wait a minute. You're telling me I got to do something different now? Like, I just figured this out, right? Like, that's what he's talking about. He said so his job, like what he really wanted to do was make sure he went to Cole and talked through with Cole about all the ways that the things that he did in Sean McDermott's defense will translate into his defense and why he's the perfect fit for it. And, in a way, even though Cole was injured and he had the knee cleanup, so he didn't participate in OTAs or minicamp, I think that time away from being on the field and having that time to watch, having that time in the meeting room, having that time to discuss and talk was good for them and good for him. And he can see that. He can conceptualize that. So he walks into training camp knowing, okay, now I kind of understand all that. So, yeah, I thought that was great too. I was really impressed with Jim Leonard today as a speaker. I have been since he's been hired. I loved Bobby Babich talking. Bobby Babich was great at the microphone. He was great. The difference is Bobby Babich was a bit like aggressive, demonstrative in a good way. Like he was fiery. Mm-hmm. Jim Leonard is kind of the opposite. Jim Leonard is very low key. He's laid back, but he gives you really, really good insight and answers. You just kind of have to listen to what he's saying. And it's really interesting how he views his role in formulating this defense. And what I mean by that is even saying, I'm a listener. I want to listen to what my guys say. Like, I'm not the guy that's going to go in there and talk. But he kind of has to do that a little bit more because it's the first year. And he's got to do that. But he's doing that. In the meantime, I asked him about C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and he goes, yeah, he's the opposite. He wants to talk. That was really interesting.
Right. While we're on safeties, I saw Kilgore's name, and we've talked about him since he was drafted. Sal, I think we're very much in step together on being sort of excited, at least, by what Jalen Kilgore might be able to do, even as a fifth-round rookie here. And it felt like just, scrolling through his practice was going on, that his name came up a lot today, it felt like.
Yeah, it seemed like he was around the ball. He made some plays. He made a really nice play on a deep ball down the field. Might have been a little bit underthrown, but he still have to make the play to break it up. We have to train ourselves, everyone has to, Bills fans, to get out of the mindset of what a nickel cornerback looked like under Sean McDermott and in that defense. And I don't just mean physically, and Taron Johnson was smaller. I mean how often they used him on the field over 90% of the time, all the time. And he's going to be asked to be in the box and defend the run. He's going to be asked to go against tight ends and running backs. That's not what Jim Leonard's defense is. Jim Leonard's defense is a matchup defense in that regard. He has a nickel corner who will be the predominant nickel corner. That's going to be D. Alford. But he's also going to have maybe three linebackers on the field more often. And then you're going to have Jalen Kilgore. And Jalen Kilgore, I think he's going to have a role. I think he is going to be a big nickel. You might even see him on the field as a third safety with a linebacker coming out and not the nickel corner coming out. I think that he can really carve out a role in this defense. There's not a starting spot for him as far as safety. That is going to be C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Cole Bishop. But I do think there's a spot for him to play.
Have we already mentioned the best thing you saw today at training camp, or do we have something that you're holding back?
Ooh, I could go with the best thing I saw was that, but no, I'm going to go with the play to DJ Moore, about a 60-yard bomb for a touchdown from Josh Allen. That happened today. Crowd went crazy. The crowd always goes nuts for the offensive plays. When it's an interception, they go, oh, right. Well, that's your defense making the interception. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I mean that was a highlight play, and I believe D. Alford slipped on the play. But, Josh found him. Josh found DJ Moore deep, really deep. Threw the ball about 60 yards in the air, on the money, in the rain, caught it, touchdown. About several plays later, the next period, whenever it was, finds DJ Moore for a 15-yard crosser. DJ Moore catches it, puts his foot in the ground, takes it to the house. and it was a legit touchdown. It wasn't one of those where he probably would have been tackled. Like he made the catch, he got upfield, he went to the house for a touchdown. So 2 DJ Moore touchdowns from Josh Allen.
The best of training camp with Sal Capaccio is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. Am I hearing things right? Is tomorrow already a day off, Sal?
It is.
Wow.
I don't remember the Bills ever having 2 days and a day off. It's always 3 days to start. It was under Sean McDermott, but they're going 2 days, and they don't have 3 days in a row at all, actually, unless you count next week when they come back for the red and blue. That will be 3 days in a row. But they don't have 3 days in a row at Fisher, only 2. And not only on top of that, Bulldog, it's a day off, a practice day, and a day off again. So they're only practicing 1 day out of the next 3. But part of that reason is because I believe pads are going out on Monday, and you generally give them a day off before the first padded practice.
I wonder how much like sports science load management it plays into them changing that from the way they've done it. The first thought I had is it feels like when a day off already, you just got there. Like it feels like when opening day happens and then teams have the day off the next day. Like, what are you doing? The baseball season just started. The sun's out again today. Come on. Get on the field and play.
I think at least in baseball they do that because it's April and the weather can matter, right? But you're right. You're right. Now let's remember. I do want people to remember the team was there on Tuesday and they did conditioning testing and all that, right? So they've been doing things. The practices only started yesterday, but I agree with you. And not only that, we talked about the earlier practices. I mean, Bulldog, yesterday they ended at 10 a.m. Today at 10:05 a.m. It was an hour and a half. I don't know what's going to happen once pads come on and you get a little deeper, but so far it's been efficient, shorter practices.
I wonder if that's at all impacted by what the weather has been.
Me too. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, Sal. Excellent as always. Thank you for this, and we'll all new questions tomorrow.
You got it, buddy. Thanks.
I promise. That's Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline. And again, training camp coverage here on WGR is presented by Fiegel, Carr, and Joyce, your border attorneys. Brought to you by Outlet Liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? And by the Barnes Firm Car Crash. You've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. All right, we'll certainly leave the door open if you have any comments or even questions about anything Sal talked about or that we talked about during the past 20 minutes or so. But certainly would love to get back into the conversation we started the show with, which is this: where are you at? Where are your expectations? Callers in the first hour citing burnout with the playoff disappointments and that somehow the excitement level about this team going into the 2026 season, another year where they are the favorite to come out of the AFC to win the Super Bowl, is somewhat muted. What do you think of that? 803-0550. And have you enjoyed the last 5 or 6 years, or do the disappointments outweigh the enjoyment you had getting to what ultimately was a disappointing ending in January? You can pick up on all of that right after this. Again, 803-0550 is the number. Mike is away today. I'm the Bulldog, and this is WGR. in a way that, I mean, he even says it plainly. I don't know. I don't think it's being perceived as a shot at the way the Bills did things under McDermott. But he says plainly, like they didn't really do a lot of that, and long story short, they're planning to do it. Move Oliver around and find ways to get him in one-on-one matchups. I think Bean even said yesterday when he spoke that one thing that Leonard really wanted to emphasize when he was going through the interview process was that he had a plan for Oliver. Like, I think this guy's a hellraiser. He is someone who can be a difference maker, and I got a way to try to help facilitate that. So let's see how that goes. 803-0550 is the number. Kind of like a summertime vibe check. It's been said in this room over the course of the last few weeks that the fan base is a little muted right now, and it strikes me that I don't have a lot of evidence one way or the other, because I don't feel like I've been getting a lot of feedback on the team on the field or what you expect the team on the field to be. I know they've just only now gotten on the field, so want to be careful there. But mostly it's been, jerseys and the stadium and who's going to this practice and who's not, and is that right and that's wrong, and what did my PSL buy me, and all that sort of stuff that has really nothing to do at all with where you're at on the team going into this year. So that's where we're starting today. 803-0550 is the number. We'll get more on training camp in about a half an hour when Sal Capaccio joins me. Matt is first up this segment. Hi, Matt. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Thanks, Bulldog. And as we all kind of come out of the hibernation here and get back into calling, just wanted to first say how impressed and how proud you should be of Owen during that Sabres run, man, in the spring. He became must listen, especially during that Canadian series. And it was just really cool to see his maturity throughout the spring.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
He's really, really great. But on the Bills side, yeah, I think, in terms of the temp check, you asked me about a week or two ago. I was probably a little cool.
They just came back and they're already going away. The Bills are going to have an off day tomorrow before returning to practice on Saturday. But today it was day 2, and before practice, it was defensive coordinator Jim Leonard's turn to speak with the media, and he spoke on the changing defense and specifically what it could mean for the safeties.
It's always a Swiss Army knife that kind of did a lot of different things, and that's what I like my safety group to be. There's going to be a lot of different roles and a lot of different positions and techniques they're asked to do, and that fits Cole Bishop's play style and his personality very well.
Staying with the defense following practice, Michael Hoyt, who was able to participate in 11-on-11s today as he continues his recovery from his Achilles injury, did speak with the media on his recovery and then if he's experienced so far any limitations.
They say with injuries you have to almost relearn where your feet go. I haven't really found that to be the case yet. As you start to introduce the stimulus of 11-on-11 football, especially with pads, you're only going to get stronger. So working through that, but no, for the most part, I feel great.
You can listen back to everyone who spoke today and yesterday up at our website, WGR550.com. And coverage of training camp on WGR is presented by Fico Car & Joyce, your board of attorneys, by Outlet Liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? And by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. For more on today, Sal Capaccio has a piece up at our website. Again, WGR550.com. More bad injury news for Carolina after a second opinion. Rookie wide receiver Chris Brazzell is going to undergo season-ending surgery to repair his torn LCL. And then good news for the Bengals. Edge rusher Shamar Stewart, he has just a hyperextended knee after potentially fearing the worst. He is, though, going to miss a few weeks after leaving yesterday on a cart. That, according to head coach Zach Taylor. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
There's going to be some huge battles up front, and a big piece of that is the nose, right? How many snaps do we want Dion at nose versus possibly 4-eye? Dwayne Carter, what is his role? There's a lot of guys that are going to be moving around. You'll see them at different places during camp, and just want to see how many snaps we think they can function in different roles for us, and you're just kind of itching to get the pads on to where we can truly evaluate it against a great offensive line, a great scheme, especially in the run game with what we do here.
That, again, is Bills defensive coordinator Jim Leonard. It's been his day today. He had the podium prior to today's practice. That clip there is him talking about what their plans are at nose tackle. Deion Walker, if you're curious, this isn't the official. I don't know that the Bills have an official depth chart up at their website yet. Sometimes it takes a couple days into camp. I've not looked. I keep an Our Lads depth chart open daily, just, flip to other teams, whatever, when we're talking to different people from out of town. Walker is listed at nose tackle. The defensive line starters: TJ Sanders, defensive end; nose tackle Walker; defensive tackle Ed Oliver. That's the three quote unquote down linemen. Dwayne Carter is second on the depth chart behind Walker there, and he's a guy. I think Walker's lost a little bit of weight off of last year. Carter, along with Landon Jackson, who's a defensive end in this defense, I believe put on weight. And I think Leonard also mentioned Fedarian Mathis there too. So I don't know how deep they'll go. But Carter's an interesting one. 3rd round pick this is his 3rd year now, and just really nothing has happened yet. I think he started to show some promise in his rookie year and then got hurt and then missed all of last year. So that's a very unknown commodity at this point, who, I don't know, it's interesting that Leonard mentions street free agent Fedarian Mathis there. I don't know if Carter as a 3rd round pick is in some trouble, but he hasn't really gotten a foothold on anything yet. That's for sure. So we'll see. There's a lot of guys, not a lot. There's a couple of guys up there. I mentioned Jackson. That's another one. You don't know really what we got there. TJ Sanders played, was uneven, but had some moments. This defense is going to be really something to watch. 803-0550 is the number. Vibes check. How's everybody feeling? Is there a burnout? Maybe that's too strong. Mike has used the word malaise, and that's what I was thinking of today when I got going and wanted to talk about this. Just another year here. We're into another summer. The Bills are the betting favorite from the AFC for the Super Bowl, and I'm not sure. I don't want to assume malaise is right, but I also don't know. It strikes me the last month or so, the only time I'm talking to fans, at least on the radio, is about uniforms and about who gets to go to which practice. So I don't have a real good handle on, if someone were to ask me, I'm always reluctant to answer definitively when someone what are the fans? How are the fans feeling? Because, again, I know we are we're the all conduit, not the conduit, but all conduit here. A way in for some fans, but we don't talk to that many people in a given day. I'm not sure how the fans are feeling. So trying to find out at least the best we can, unscientifically, of course, here on a radio show. 803-0550 is the number. Mike leads us off this segment. Hi, Mike. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
How you doing, Bulldog? So
good.
I'm just thinking about myself personally. I personally feel a burnout in a way. And, again, I've been through the team, for all these years and stuff, the past 5 years especially. And I don't know, I'm not consuming Bills content on, YouTube like I have in previous off seasons. And I just feel like get to January, because they're always the Super Bowl favorite every year. Same thing. They look good in camp, regular season. I feel like it was a missed opportunity. Even if they even win it all this year, I feel like one of those teams in the past 5 years should have at least gotten there, and it was a missed opportunity. So, me personally, I just don't feel it this year. And McDermott, it was time for him to go. So it has nothing to do with the coaching change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, personally, I think it should have happened 2 years ago, to be honest with you. But it just in general, I'm just not there mentally. And I can't. Maybe, I don't know. I think, me personally, I think it's a burnout.
Yeah, I hear you. I have one follow-up question. Are you doing something that you're enjoying with the time you're saving not watching YouTube videos of the Bills, like you're saying? Have you taken up something else that is filling your time productively or at least enjoyably?
Yes, sir, I am, But again, but before I would just find myself constantly, just looking at the different YouTube videos of the Bills content, whether it's negative or positive, just to get that Bills fix, and I don't know. It's just I don't feel it. Even the training camp that's going on right now. Normally I would go to training camp every year too. I kind of burned out from that and stuff. So it's just I don't know. Just get to January, and do something then. And I know that's not a good place to be as a fan because you got to go through a whole regular season. And I'm not saying I'm not going to enjoy like every regular season game, but it's like we've seen this all every year. Like it's just like Charlie Brown and losing the football, you know?
Right.
So, like,
yeah. I thank you, Mike. I detect no lies being told here because all of that's true, and certainly you're entitled to feel how you feel. As someone who is in the I don't want to sound like I'm hip here, but like, content creation business here, like that's what we do here, and we're streaming it now, like a lot of podcasts that are produced locally and nationally are certainly and have been doing. Good for you. Find something else to do. Like right now, you don't need to be watching, me or Mike or Sal or anybody like dissecting practice and tearing your way through, what Chris Sims and Mike Florio think of the Bills' new uniforms or whatever. Like it's okay. It's summer. I wonder what September will bring for you. Like you did say it at the end there, like, you're not going to enjoy the games, but you're just waiting on January. And look, there's nothing wrong with waiting on January and being eager to see what January brings. I mean, it has been the Bills have, that's why I said no lies detected. It is very familiar. Lucy moving the ball on Charlie Brown. Like I get it. But I think you still have the enjoyment of all of those games. I wouldn't want to miss out on that myself. Just being obsessed about January. Like, it'll come eventually, and what I think maybe you learn is, any given year, 2 years ago, I think I felt maybe the most strongly about this. Like, okay, this is it. This is their year. It's all going to come together here. There was some synergy with Peyton Manning getting past Brady, matching the years of Allen to get past Mahomes. Like, okay, I feel it. I think it's going to – no. Right, that's the AFC Championship loss at the end of the 24 season. So it is, it is familiar, but it still is – to me, it's all just still worth investing in is all. Like, I don't say that selfishly because it's interesting. He's not taking in a lot of content, but he's ready to call this show, which I'm grateful for. I'm flattered. You dipped your toe in the water today, and I'm glad. I think it's all, I'm not saying you should pay attention. You do whatever you want. But, it's you might miss out. Like, I think that's a part of I know the scars feel unhealable at times because there's so many of them and they're similar enough in nature that it all feels too familiar. But there is something to be said for being reminded that you're alive, I think. And I know that's kind of hokey or hippie-ish or whatever. Like, I don't know. But I definitely subscribe to that. Like, I feel the disappointment. I feel the burn. Believe me, it feels awful when a playoff game ends. And I know, like, I'm like, Denver's driving after that interception last year, and penalties. They're in field goal range. And I know I'm about to go upstairs and turn the gear on and do a post-game show that's another post-mortem on another Bills playoff failure. Believe me, I feel that personally, and I feel that professionally. It stings. It never gets easier. It never gets any more comfortable to take and process and talk about. But it's still, to me, it's the greatest ride you could have. It just keeps not ending where you want it to end, but still, to me, is well worth your time and energy if you have cared about this team. I mean, you got to go through it, and if you sort of, distance yourself before they win, you're going to miss out on something. Like the paying the price and the cost to emotionally. I mean, I'm not talking about the stadium. There's a payoff in that, assuming that eventually it comes, which I don't know, maybe is a lot to assume. 803-0550. Thank you for the call. I am Bulldog. Mike is away today. We'll be back right after this on WGR.
Look, we're in year 9 of Josh Allen. We're starting afresh with a new coach, new coordinators. And I was probably a little bit more pessimistic, but made the pilgrimage over to the stadium recently and got to check out kind of the whole experience. And I think that's just such a good reminder of, what this contention window has been. I think without Josh and without what we've done, it'd be really hard to imagine building a stadium of this stature. And then you roll that right into what Leonard has said today, how Brady came out yesterday. They might say the word right a few too many times, but ultimately I like the way that, they're rolling with it. And this defense has me excited. I think the initial scouting out of camp seems really, really positive, and it's kind of shifted my entire viewpoint. So I think, as soon as we get pads on, we'll be feeling even better, and then that optimism will go from jerseys and stadiums into, what's on the field.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. I heard Brad and Tim talking about the saying right at the end of a statement. You are not going to find me picking apart people's vocabulary habits. It's not. I'm going to stay out of that one. That's not a fight I need to get into. I got my own. I got a long list of my own problems in that department. Josh is next up. Hi, Josh. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hi, Bulldog. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's just such a really interesting conversation because the way that I kind of view it, the fan base reacting to the last several years, is the fact that we've had such high highs but also such low lows that I think it almost kind of balances the reactions of the fan base out a bit. Like if you're having chicken wings, and you want to, tame the spice, you have like a glass of milk or something, it's like there's like a neutrality that's kind of, attained when you have these incredible moments. I mean, I was down in Florida for grad school recently, and just being able to just talk about the Bills and Josh Allen, it was nice to kind of gloat a little bit.
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I think it's really easy to get stuck on the negatives and 13 seconds and all that. But I mean, I would not trade the world for the highs that have come from the last several years. And I think it also kind of plays out in the fact, like, last year we said, hey, we're a second half team, right? So those first halves we were having, some stress levels were high, but then
Cruising along here on a Thursday. Thanks for hanging out. Mike is off the next couple of days. So it's just a little old me, the Bulldog, here with you. Radio's the Bulldog. 803-0550. Let's squeeze in a couple of more, or at least one more here before we hit the top of the hour. Jake is first up. Hi, Jake. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for taking the call.
Sure thing.
It's been I definitely put me in the burnout category, even suicide watch. I'm just joking. It's been a fun run. And I think just looking at the changes that have been made with the roster and management, I don't really see a different outcome forthcoming. I mean, that's kind of where my head's at. The other thing that's on a slow burn in the background is, you've got one of the best players, if not the best Buffalo Bill of all time, if you want to put Bruce Smith in that conversation too. But how much longer is he going to be around? So I just feel like there's a lot of pressure, and maybe that's clouding my optimism there, but that's kind of where my head's at.
Well, sure. I mean, I feel you there. I mean, I think optimistically, like the most optimistic you can be is that you're like roughly halfway through Allen's career, which is a lot to say because he's played 8 years. So, I mean, 8 more years is a 16-year career. He's 30 right now, so you're 38. I hope he plays that long. I hope he is capable of playing the way he's been playing for that long. But, yeah, I mean, the clock is definitely ticking there. There's no question about that. Scott is next up. Hi, Scott. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hey, Bulldog. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
I just want to say I wouldn't give it up for the world, man. These last 5 years have been an incredible ride. It's just a magnitude of monumental moments just over and over every week. It's just, we got the heartache, but – man, I remember where I was for all these last-minute interceptions, all these Allen runs, and jumping out of your seat and hugging a stranger next to you. Man, I wouldn't give it up for the world. It's the heartbreak does suck, and it's the first. There's always seems to be like some sort of comfort after all of them, except for the one Kansas City game, the last time we faced Kansas City. That one I really thought we'd have it, but. Like the first one is we're not ready. The second was 13 seconds. Okay, we'll get it again. In Cincinnati, we had a hard year with everything that happened, but man, and I don't know if it's a blessing or a tragedy, but last year I was like, when we got out of the playoffs, I was like, yeah, that's us. Whatever. It was a great year, but it sucks that it's like I said, blessing or travesty. I don't know, but I'm prepared this year too. I'm not going to get my heart broke, but I sure as hell am going to enjoy every Sunday. It's fantastic.
All right, Scott. Appreciate the call very much. Good job there. I think blessing or a tragedy. I know we're just talking. It is hard to go through over and over again. But again, like I made the point earlier, and it sort of like sparked the conversation a lot, I think. Not that I need that now. We're taking a pause on calls at the top of the hour because Matt Perino is going to be my guest. But the difference between how the heartbreak feels, how bad the heartbreak feels when you lose a huge game versus it doesn't even feel like heartbreak when your team can't get out of its own way and not make the playoffs for 17 years in a row. There's not even heartbreak in that. There's distance and apathy. And I definitely don't think any of that is called for. right now. Not that anybody is calling for it, but man, it's still good times. All right, take a break. Matt Perino right after this on WGR.
Visualization, so to say,
A microcosm of the 6 years, kind of. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, thank you, Josh. Appreciate the phone call. I like the caller before too, mentioning the stadium as a piece of this. Like, I don't have like a long form, well thought out position on the stadium's place in all of this, but it's so new and so different that I wonder if there's any sort of like the lack of familiarity that's exciting, but it's also kind of like, do you miss knowing where you're going to be and where you're going to meet your friends and like everybody's tailgate spot and like a lot of that stuff. I am very much often enough, I guess, to my detriment, a creature of habit. Like I like to know like where am I going? Where do I got to be? You know, what am I going to do? Where am I parking? What all that. Like I crave that. We're going on a some sort of harbor cruise tomorrow, and I wasn't involved at all in like the whole planning or any. And then like, where's the place? What time do we got to be there? Where am I going to? I got to know that 36 hours ahead of time because I'm a weirdo that way, right? The stadium is such a massive change. There's no question. It's overall a positive, despite my misgivings about the video announcing the jerseys and whatever. Like I recognize what it means. It's one of the most meaningful developments in my lifetime with this football team that happened. So it's momentous, but it also is maybe a little bittersweet. The stadium across the street is got a wrecking ball, and I don't know. There's just a lot packed in there that and everyone's going to react to it differently. It strikes me as I'm talking with the first few people who've gotten through today about enjoying the last 6 seasons of contention that the Bills have had. And despite the disappointment, like, would you look back at it and say, like, that's been some of the most fun I've ever had? Like I am. I mean, I'm telling you, professionally and personally, those streams, they weave together all the time for me. So if professionally I'm enjoying the Bills, personally I am too. I mean, it's just there's no separating that. And it has been a joyride. But it does. I'm reminded of a conversation I remember having. I don't know how soon after the 21 season it was, but it might have been like at this time of the year, going into the 22 season, that I did a show like just like a day like today, maybe in the summertime. Mike was away. I'm by myself. And I sort of stumbled into, maybe a caller even brought it to the table, comparing the drought to the disappointment of 13 seconds. And I ended up in a conversation with listeners and was stunned at how many people would assert to me, publicly on the radio, not that, you out there in the audience know who all these people are calling in, but still, I want to call the radio station and I got to tell this guy that 13 seconds, a bitter playoff loss, is worse than the drought. And I mean, it still blows my mind to this day. And I guess, like, to an extent, it shouldn't, because everyone's different. But it's such a window into how differently people who have the same interest can be wired or are wired. Because I can't even fathom. I mean, I said earlier, and I'm not being overly dramatic. Like, I really mean it. If the drought had kept going another 2 or 3 years, I don't know that I'd still be here doing this job. It was so mundane. There was just no longer, and unlike the Sabres, we mostly, during their drought, were able to ignore. Because for the back end of it here, the Bills were excellent, and football, good or bad, there's always, one of the dangers of working by yourself. And sometimes you got a cough and you can't reach the button in time, and there's no one else to talk in your place. You get to a place where you just can't ever stop. Football just goes on. It never stops. Even when the Bills are terrible, even when they're in the throes of a 17-year playoff drought, we're still talking about them every day. And it was so boring to me. I hated it. I'm just going to be honest.
Day 2 is in the books for the Bills and training camp tomorrow. They're going to have the day off. They'll be back on the practice field, though, on Saturday. This morning, though, before practice, it was defensive coordinator Jim Leonard's turn to speak with the media. He spoke on a number of things, including the changing defense and what that can mean for the safeties.
It's always a Swiss Army knife that kind of did a lot of different things, and that's what I like my safety group to be. There's going to be a lot of different roles and a lot of different positions and techniques they're asked to do, and that fits Cole Bishop's play style and his personality very well.
Staying with the defense, following practice, Michael Hoyt, who is still recovering from his Achilles injury suffered last year, he participated in 11-on-11s today and would speak with the media after practice. He spoke on his recovery and if he has experienced any limitations thus far.
They say with injuries, you have to almost relearn where your feet go. I haven't really found that to be the case yet. As you start to introduce the stimulus of 11-on-11 football, especially with pads, you're only going to get stronger. So working through that, but no, for the most part, I feel great.
You can listen back to everyone who spoke today and yesterday up at our website, WGR550.com, and coverage of training camp on WGR is presented by Fiegel Car and Joyce, your border attorneys. By Outlet Liquor, when you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? And by The Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call The Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. More bad injury news for Carolina. After a second opinion, rookie wide receiver Chris Brazzell is going to be undergoing season-ending surgery to repair his torn LCL. And then more contract news, big money being handed out to New Orleans wide receiver Chris Olave. He signs a 4-year deal worth up to $132 million. $90 million of that is guaranteed to keep him with the Saints. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Mike Schopp.
Hey, put a little. I never get this line out the first time. It's not even good. Hey, put a little bit more in there, cowboy.
And the Bulldog.
What's your degree in?
Kicking ass and taking names.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Rolling our way through a Thursday afternoon here on WGR. Thanks for tuning in. I am the Bulldog. Mike Schopp is away for a couple of days here. The Bills have gotten into it here. 2 days in the rain so far at St. John Fisher for training camp 2026. And a day off incoming tomorrow. They'll be back on the practice field on Saturday, and then I believe Monday the pads come on. Another day off on Sunday. Joining us now on the West Her Hotline to pour over these 2 days and maybe the entire offseason as well is Matt Perino, Bills beat reporter for Syracuse.com and host of the very popular Shout podcast. Matt, good afternoon. How you been?
I am great. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm great, and you're welcome. Thank you for making the time. Before we get into the Bills, how's the Little League season treating you? Is this the big year for you like it is for Sal, or was that last year? Like, where are you at on the timeline?
I'm next year.
Okay.
So he's 1 year ahead of me, and we'll go to Cooperstown next year. We already started the fundraising, let's call it that,
Yeah.
and got to get the funds going.
Yeah. All right. Good times. Well, busy time now then with that probably wrapping up or close to wrapping up, I hope for your sake anyway. But, of course, Bills camp here in a couple of days in. Can we start on wait. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, nothing.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said something, and I thought I interrupted. I apologize. So you saw the tweet mentioning you coming on the show. What's your read on where the fan base is right now? Like I said to Sal an hour ago, you probably get a lot of people coming up to you and asking you, like, and talking Bills with you, just like we all do. But I realized today I don't have a great sense of like where the excitement level is for this team. I mean, they're installed, again, according to Vegas, as the AFC favorite for the Super Bowl. But I'm not sure the fan base is lined up behind that entirely. Like, where are you at on that?
I think it's a great question. It's a great topic because I don't think I've gotten more questions. Like, you know how a lot of times people will come up to you and they'll ask you about the Bills, but they'll be really eager to give you their own take after you answer?
Yep.
That is the part that I feel like I'm not getting as much. It is kind of like an ask and wait and listen, and they want to be directed toward some kind of positive feelings about, because I think this is a great unknown, right? Like, I could sit here and tell you all my thoughts about what has been done, right? Like the moves that have been made, the people that have been installed, the decision makers that are here. But I can't tell you necessarily what it's going to look like, even on offense, because the guy calling the plays didn't have to manage the entire operation over the last 2.5 years. So I think there's this great unknown about, all right, everybody loves Jim Leonard universally, like nationally, football people, everybody I've talked to from the combine to the owners' meetings, every NFL calendar point I've spent talking to people about how the Bills are changing. And people love Jim Leonard, but do the players that exist on this roster right now that are holdovers, are those guys going to work in Jim Leonard's scheme? On offense, are the Bills going to be more aggressive? Will that be to their detriment? Will that be opening up the passing game more? I don't think it will be. I think Joe Brady believes in the tenets that have been established here, right? A great running game helps Josh Allen mitigate the chaos at times that has really followed him throughout his career, right? We even saw it as recently as the playoff game in Denver last year when he had 4 interceptions. I think Joe Brady is going to be able to take everything he's learned over the last 2.5 years, the mentorship of Aaron Cromer, whatever impact Sean McDermott had on him, whether it was somebody that took a little bit of the hectic nature potentially of the offense that existed before he got here out. I think he's going to manage a lot of that really well. But until he does it, there's just a lot of great unknowns. I'll tell you what I'm most sure about. I'm most sure that a healthy DJ Moore is going to be just a wonderful medicine for this offense. When things are hard, I think he's going to help make them easy. They're going to be able to run the ball still. If you install Alec Anderson at left guard or you install Austin Corbett at left guard, although I think he's had a really tough training camp so far. The pads aren't on yet, so let's not overreact. I think they're still going to be able to run the ball with efficiency, at a large volume. However, go back to the Pittsburgh game last year, I think they can still do that. But I think that DJ Moore, to me, is even the biggest optimists maybe aren't necessarily factoring in how important he's going to be to the success of this overall passing game.
Matt Perino from Syracuse.com on the Wester hotline with us here on WGR. It sounds like fans are almost coming to you and saying, "Tell me something good. Tell me how to help me love the Bills." It's kind of what it sounds like a little bit there, which I get. It has been the same ceiling, subtly different ways, but the end result has been the same. Bitter disappointment. So I can understand some degree of, burnout, malaise, whatever. But with all the new, it would make sense that fans are sort of curious, like, what do you really think of this guy and that guy? You mentioned Leonard there, and that's such a big one. I mean, Brady, I think, I trust that the offense, it's largely intact. You mentioned a new left guard. You've added DJ Moore. The rest of it is intact, and that was good enough to still be one of the best offenses in the league. So I don't think there's any reason to be really worried about that side of the ball, with Brady still in charge of that. How he'll do overall as the head coach remains to be seen. Leonard, I agree. I was happy to hear his name involved in the interview process and was rooting for him to get the job. But the piece with the personnel is such a big deal. I mean, even when you start hearing about, I don't know how you feel about this, but I get like alarms go off when I hear, oh, Landon Jackson is putting on 25 pounds. Dwayne Carter's putting on weight. Deion Walker's dropping weight. Like, what are we doing? These guys were drafted for a different system, and you're trying to reshape them. And I know that doesn't mean that can't work, but that always worries me when you're trying to fit guys here into like a new position, basically.
No, I understand that. I think the one thing that would be settling in that pursuit, if I'm looking at it from a fan's perspective, is you have Jim Leonard that's going to have a bunch of different options to try to fit in what he needs, right? Like at the end of the day, most defensive lines, even if you go super deep, like you're going to really rely on a rotation of like 7 or 8 guys that you can lean on. And you think about Bradley Chubb and Rousseau and Oliver, who I think of all the players on defense, I think Oliver may be getting the special attention of a new defensive coordinator. I mean, what's all the stuff that we've heard from Jim this offseason is like finding a way to make it easier on Ed, who, if you do go back and watch the games, like he's always getting double teamed because the opposing offenses haven't had to worry much about the Bills on the edge over the last couple of years consistently. I think Greg Rousseau is really good, but he's not an elite level player. They had an elite level, borderline elite level player for 8 games with Von Miller before the injury. And other than that, it has been mostly teams game planning to just take Ed Oliver out of the game because there's nobody else that can wreck it. So now if you have a new philosophy and the unknown of what the scheme is really going to look like, you could prep with Denver, but there's a different personnel here. Maybe the creativity of Jim Leonard is finding a way to utilize guys in a different way that Sean McDermott just wasn't. And I think Ed Oliver is the guy that I'm looking at that when you go 5 down linemen, and so now you have more problems to solve with some of these other guys, and if Deion Walker can take a step, I think you can get excited about what Ed Oliver is going to be. But Landon Jackson and Dwayne Carter and, you know, the guy that I wrote about pretty heavily today and talked about on my show, Zane Durant, who is really popping early without the pads. We'll see if that continues when they put the pads on, which I think is supposed to be Monday. That's going to be important to watch. But it's just going to be like trial by fire for all of these younger guys. And, like, the best of the best will be the ones that are left standing that are going to back up some of the guys that we just talked about.
Yeah, I really wonder about Carter here. It might be something where I'm reading too much into it because coaches don't want to ignore or fail to mention any one guy when they're talking about the depth chart. But when Leonard was talking earlier this morning, Matt, he mentioned, you know, nose tackle Walker, Carter, and Fedarian Mathis, and my antenna went up, and I just thought, like, Dwayne Carter. It's been a rough couple of years. I mean, injuries largely have just wrecked the first 2 years, and I feel like that's a guy, even though he's a 3rd-round pick, that if Mathis shows to be capable, I wonder if Carter could be in some trouble.
He definitely could be, especially if you bake in, if you're Leonard and you get a chance to see him for a few months here. You lead up to 53-man roster cutdown, and then you say, okay, he's probably at the back of the line in terms of who we trust at that spot because he was kind of a tweener, right? He played a little nose, little 3-tech at Duke. Then maybe you start thinking about, okay, if that's the case, and you've got to, like, kind of project what year 3 is going to look like coming off of an Achilles. It's not an ACL. It's an Achilles for a heavier guy that's put on some size. I'm starting to get a little worried about that for sure. But he's got such a great attitude, and he's a locker room guy that if he gets into the preseason games and he shows you that he can be a bit of that anchor and he could show you some pop with his ability to get into the backfield and disrupt opposing teams' running game. Like, he was in the backfield today. Like, he had a would-be sack on the Kyle Allen interception to Joe Andreessen. That if he can do that over the course of these 3 preseason games, and he's going to get a ton of opportunities, and he's in a good place health-wise, and it's good for him too that he was 100% ready to go in team from the jump in training camp. If he stays healthy throughout and gets action in all 3 games, or at least 2, you may not want him to have a ton of action in game 3. You'd like to see what he does in the first 2, and then you don't need to play him because you know what you have. I think they're rooting for this guy. I think they think that there's more to him than just what he provides on the field. I mean, he was I think a 4-year captain at Duke. This is a guy that does a ton off the field in the community. So I think that they're gonna give him every opportunity. But if Mathis is better after the next 6 or 8 weeks, yeah, there might be a decision to be made. There might be a decision to make on both sides of the ball. There's a ton of buildup in that offensive line room, too. It's been a rough start for Austin Corbett. Again, I am not going to put any stock in that because the pads haven't come on yet, so I'm not even really writing about that intently in my daily recaps. But eventually that's going to be a topic point because you have Van Pran Granger, who's behind Cushenberry very likely, and they're starting to work him at guard a little bit. They had Chase Lunt working in at guard. They drafted him as a tackle. Grable has played guard before. So they have tons of guys that are competing for what's ultimately not going to be not enough spots to keep all of them. And that's going to be something that, for Carter especially, is something I'm watching over the next 6 weeks.
Matt Perino on the Bills beat from Syracuse.com and also the very popular Shout podcast, our guest here on the West Her Hotline. It feels like most conversations I'm either taking part in, excuse me, or hearing or reading are talking about concerns is the linebacker. Bernard is being slow played. Dorian Williams to some extent also. That opens the door for Caleb Elarm-Zor, and maybe that'll be a blessing because maybe he'll just hit the ground and just be flying. It seems like everyone is giving him very positive reviews. But do you share the concern that it feels like most observers have about the linebacking situation?
It's kind of a double-edged sword because on one level, yeah, you'd love to have one more veteran guy because the two veterans, I'd consider Bernard and Williams veterans at this point. They played a lot of football. I don't trust them to be able to stay healthy. So that piece of it is definitely concerning. But I also think that they're onto something with Elarm-Zor. Like you don't hear all three levels, like players, coaches, and then the executives, like the Brandon Bean level, talk this way about rookies very often. And everything that we've seen, like jumping into the huddle and shooing Joe Brady out in one of his first practices during OTAs, coming out in the first 2 days here and just, Jim Leonard saying he's taking advantage of the opportunity and they trust him. I mean, he's out there making plays. I was talking to Michael Hoyt after practice with Sal, actually, and one of the things that I asked him is because he talked about one of the differences between a 3-4 and a 4-3 scheme, and you'll just see how you attack the opposing run games just look a little bit different. And one of the things is they want linebackers being able to kind of freely move between the waves to get down the line of scrimmage. And Caleb Elarm-Zor had one of those plays today where he blew up Ty Johnson in the backfield, and I asked him about him. He's like, yeah, he's been making plays all camp long, going back to the spring camp. And so guys are confident in him, which is a big piece, so that lessens my concern, because I think if you end up with Caleb as one of your starting linebackers, and now you can maybe rely on Bernard maybe to start, and if he can't healthy, then turn it over to Dorian Williams, you still have some veterans out there. Like Shaq Thompson played in a 3-4 scheme in Carolina. He'll come in here and be able to do it from the jump. We saw it last year playing in a kind of a different scheme with Sean McDermott. So I think it's one of those things that there's a level of concern, but I also think the second and third level aren't to me as important, even if you're getting really solid play or above average play or great play there, if your defensive line isn't what they're hoping this thing is going to be. It's going to start up front. They're going to have to affect quarterbacks to make the second and third level work anyway. And so my concern kind of defaults to the defensive line no matter what.
Yeah. Speaking of getting pressure, what are your expectations for TJ Parker? I feel like a guy like Elarm-Zor, Kilgore to an extent, Igbinosun, this started right after the draft. Like Sal's recap of the draft was kind of the upside down draft because the maybe the meat of it, the guys that you might see make an impact quickly were late Friday into Saturday picks as opposed to their first pick, which was a second rounder in TJ Parker. But that said, this is a guy that was maybe top half of the first round after the 24 season, new scheme at Clemson in 25, and a lot of performances dropped off, including his. But I wonder if there's a sneaky, maybe good, potentially impactful player there.
I'm not holding my breath only because, like, if we're being honest, this regime doesn't have a great track record there with this position. Like, in a lot of ways, you know, I think of, like, Boogie Basham and A.J. Epinesa and, to a lesser degree, Rousseau, who was, I thought, a little bit more impactful as a rookie, where they just haven't hit at that position. Landon Jackson last year was drafted to be a 4-3 end coming out of college. And so I think I'm trying to move to what the expectation should be with Jim Leonard, but the most part, the staff is in place that has drafted a lot of these other guys, and T.J. Parker is very similar to Epinesa and Boogie. So I'm trying to cap my expectations. Now, the one thing I'll say about Parker that I love is how much he comps to Bradley Chubb, and getting him in the room. They spent time together over the last 6 weeks during the break, and he's kind of taken him under his wing. And, you know, I didn't necessarily see a ton of it today, but I did see some of the other reporters saying that, you know, he was having some one-on-one wins. It's tough when you're watching practice to see all 11 on both sides of the ball every play. So it hasn't popped to me yet, but I will tell you what I will be watching when the pads come on, which, again, I think is going to be Monday. One-on-ones against offensive linemen. Are we seeing the athletic profile, the second gear, the third gear, the drive that Brandon talked about? That's going to give me a little bit more optimism for what this can look like. And the great thing for him is, where is he in the pecking order? If Michael Hoyt is this ready to go at the beginning of training camp, he's, to me, the third cog behind Chubb and Rousseau, and then you can have any combination at the other spot. Mike Dannon, who's got a lot of veteran experience, playoff experience. You have Javon Solomon, who's kind of like that different flavor of speed rusher off the edge. So that puts T.J. Parker in a place where if it's not ready to go from the jump, there are a lot of other options that they can kind of tap into. And even like if things aren't going well for Landon inside, when they go to 4 down linemen, he could still rush as an end, which is where he was the best at Arkansas anyway. And they're still doing that. This is going to be a hybrid scheme. It's not going to be always, you know, that 3-4 look that, you know, kind of gives you those 5 linemen. So Parker's that's a great question. And it's honestly, if we're talking about the defense, he's probably somebody that I have the lowest expectations for. And it's not because of the player. It's just because of the track record.
Well, it was Jim Leonard's day. He spoke, so we spent most of this. It's a whole new era, Matt. New head coach, new conversation where we don't talk about wide receivers until there's like 2 or 3 minutes left in the on the clock here. What are your early observations of DJ Moore?
Just impressed with, first of all, from the play, like the on-field perspective, how fluid of a mover he is. Like, of course, it's easy to say this because he is the best receiver that's been in the room since Stephon Diggs, but it's like that. Like, those kinds of players move differently. And early on in camp, one of the big things that we're watching is these individual drills where they're going through their breaks, they're repping the routes that they're going to run in practice. They're so really dialed into the details. And, like, when you watch Moore, it's different than everybody else. And that's including Khalil Shakir, who I think is about as crisp of a route runner as you'll find. There's just an athleticism and fluidity to his game that's just different. It looks different and it feels different. And that's something that I think available to a quarterback is next level. He's not necessarily looking to be a mentor for Skylar Bell or Keon Coleman. Like, that doesn't seem like he's not a really loud guy in the room. Like, Stephon Diggs was a leader. Like, guys followed him. And I don't think that's going to be what DJ Moore is leaning into. And I don't necessarily think they need that. I think we've seen quite a bit of maturation from Keon Coleman. You know, Brandon even saying yesterday that he feels the light went on this offseason. That's something that maybe now he can just be trusted to be wide receiver 3 in that room and maybe be poised for a big season. I know a lot of fans groan and roll their eyes when I say that. I'm probably one of the more bullish beat reporters still on Keon Coleman. But I think part of that comes from, like, I haven't loved the discourse around him. This is a kid that, like, I've been critical of him, and I think he deserves criticism for the transgressions and, being late to the meetings. But I also think he's a 21, 22, now 23-year-old who still is going to be wearing a Bills jersey, and him figuring it out and doing the work to try to figure it out, which appears he's done. I mean, he spent part of the summer with Stevie Johnson, and he looks better. He's moving better. I think fans should root for that. And as a journalist, I'm kind of rooting for that story a little bit. So I think DJ Moore is going to have a positive impact, even if he's not the outspoken leader type, because of what his presence does for everybody else in that room.
All right, Matt, you got anything like road shows with your buddy Ryan Talbot coming up you want to promote? Now's your opportunity.
Yes, actually. We're going to be at the Mafia Hub. How fitting, right? Here in Rochester on St. Paul Street, downtown Rochester, August 6th, 6 p.m. If you're coming out to camp, if you're in town in Rochester, if you're in Buffalo and you want to just make the drive and hang out for the night, that's going to be kind of like our camp recap show next Thursday, August 6th. We can't wait.
Right, the camp will have come and gone just about by then, right? That's why you say camp recap. It's a quickie.
It's right at the end. Yes, it's right at the end.
All right, Matt. Enjoyed this as always. Thank you very much. Keep up the great work, and I hope you draw a big crowd out in Rochester next Thursday.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
That is Matt Perino, Bills beat reporter for Syracuse.com. You also see him as part of the crew on News 4 Buffalo with Josh Reed and that whole crew. I know Sal's been a part of that at times. And, of course, the Shout podcast, as I mentioned. Appreciate the time, as always. All right, you want to get back into it here? We've had really good calls. Really enjoyed the conversation about where you're all at, fans, on the Bills going into this year. Are you kind of worn down by the playoff failures, or are you just ready and raring to go for another season despite the disappointment that comes every January here? The last 6 years since they became a contender have been a great ride, but I sense that maybe it's taken some out of some folks. So enjoyed, again, the comments so far from fans and listeners, and we'll open up the phone lines again at 803-0550 to see if we can't get that started up again. Mike is away today. I am the Bulldog, and you're listening to WGR.
Day 2 is in the books over at Bills training camp. They're going to have tomorrow off and then return to the field on Saturday. Today, though, before practice, it was defensive coordinator Jim Leonard's turn to speak with the media, and he spoke on the changing defense and what it can mean for the safeties, specifically Cole Bishop.
It's always a Swiss Army knife that kind of did a lot of different things, and that's what I like my safety group to be. There's going to be a lot of different roles and a lot of different positions and techniques they're asked to do, and that fits Cole Bishop's play style and his personality very well.
Following practice, going over to the offense, new addition wide receiver DJ Moore. He was speaking with the media. He's offered up a number of highlights through 2 days, and he spoke on that budding relationship with he and quarterback Josh Allen.
Just getting out here early and just going back and forth like we are today. Constant communication on the field between the 2 days, and we just going to keep building.
You can listen back to everyone who spoke today and yesterday up at our website, WGR550.com, and coverage of training camp on WGR is presented by Fiegel Car and Joyce, your border attorneys, by Outlet Liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? And by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
I wanted the deal done, set the deadline, and told them it was going to be all ball after that, and I did mean that. And I don't know if they thought I was just going to take some of the offers that they gave, but I'm at the point of my career and understanding what I've brought to this franchise. One, I'm very, very thankful for the chance they gave me. Do not get me wrong on that. But I really know what I've brought to this franchise, leadership-wise, and even play-wise. It's been some of the best years of my career, and I think it's only going to trend upwards, just being comfortable and feeling that. So disappointing in that regard to not have, to feel disrespected a little bit. That's really the disappointing part, to feel undervalued after, thinking you've earned it.
Well, that is, hang on. Sorry, Blue Oyster Call. It's twice today with the music, Zach. You're playing all the hits. Go Godzilla. Baker Mayfield. That is that's about as far from it is what it is as you can get. Like that. I'm not surprised because Mayfield he's got that personality. Like I could see him. It's totally understandable to me that he's not a person that could just keep that in. He's gotta we'll work on it again after the season. I'm gonna bet on myself and whatever. He said some nice things about the organization too, and even in that clip, right? Thankful, grateful for the opportunity, all that. But still, his career. It probably, there has got to be such scar tissue from what happened in Cleveland with him. If you don't remember the backstory, at least the way I know the backstory, he was never great, but he played through a shoulder injury and other stuff too that, he probably should have shut it down, but he kept playing and his performance was not up to par with the 101 of the draft, which he was in the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson draft. So they just we're done, cast him aside, and he bounced around a little bit. Carolina, the Rams, settles in Tampa, and last year was uneven. There's no other. There's other ways to put it. That's a polite way to put it. Just was not as good as his first year there. And so I would very much be buyer beware if I were Tampa. But on the other hand, I really like Mayfield a lot. But I wouldn't want to pay him although I watched a longer interview. I think he talked with Jeremy Fowler with ESPN. In addition to talking at a podium today, I think at practice or after practice or whatever it was. And, talked about, probably would be in the top 15 contracts by the time the market resets next offseason, something like that. So I think the reporting indicates he wasn't looking to go on top of all the guys, because that's often how it works, right? Free agent at a position, you're this level of good or great, and whether you're the best or not, you go to the top of the heap. Like it happens with cornerback and receivers all the time. Like whoever gets the latest contract sort of resets the market. And I don't get the impression from what I've read that Mayfield, even what he said, that he was looking to do that. I mean, I think that would have been insane. But I also don't know exactly what he was looking for. And he did say to Jeremy Fowler they were a ways off with what their offers were and what he was willing to do. So, I think the Buccaneers are playing it smart, but I also sympathize with Mayfield because he's just been this has been his career. And, if he were a better player, this wouldn't be happening. Like if he'd had a great year last year, they wouldn't been able to wait to give him $200 million over the next 4 years or something, probably. But he didn't. And so, they've got the franchise tag if they want it. If he balls out this year and leads them to some kind of great year, then, they can revisit. And hopefully he's not so burned by it that, he wants to move on just like out of spite or something. But it's tough to think I'm gonna get comfort. I'm gonna get security. He talked about we're living there, raising a family there. Like we really are enjoying it in Tampa, and here now I'm on a prove it year again. So I'm rooting for him, but I totally understand Tampa's perspective. I mean, I think you'd have you'd be signing up for potentially like a lot of dead money problems. I think because I'm not sure he's who I want to really hitch my wagon to if I were them. One other thing that made news in the league in the last 24 hours, not that he retired, but Taysom Hill put out a lengthy statement that I came across last night, so I'm assuming it happened last evening that he put this statement out. And he did not announce his retirement. He simply said, I don't know what's next. So he's not closing the door to playing somewhere else, but just that it appears at this point that the Saints and that's over. The Saints aren't welcoming him back. So that part of his career, 9 years with the Saints, and it's over there. And, I thought 9 years, like how many of those were even good years for the team? And it's tough. The tail end here, the last 5 years have been very, very tough for them. But prior to that, like the first 3-4 years of his career, I mean, he's on the Minneapolis Miracle team. He's on the team, I think he might be a rookie, on the team that lost in the NFC title game on the Nicole Roby-Coleman interference in the end zone that wasn't called, that led to more reviews in the league. So there was team success, and he was a part of that early in his career, but the last 5 years have been the Saints have been a doormat mostly. I was blown away. This is a guy that mostly never had an official position, right? Like fantasy. Is he a tight end? Is he a quarterback? Is he a slot receiver? Like, what are we doing with him? He did some of that and more, all of that and more for the Saints. 9 seasons. How much money do you suppose Taysom Hill made? Zach is on the phone, but I want to ask him when he gets done screening this call. Maybe he saw the tweet. I retweeted it. Not that Zach is like monitoring my Twitter feed, but I'm just curious. Zach, do you happen to know? It's better if you don't, but if you do, then so be it. Do you know how much money Taysom Hill made over 9 years?
I know it's something like, depending on how you feel about Hill, offensive.
Okay. Yeah.
Like it's a lot of money.
$63 million.
Yeah, see, that makes me upset. Like it kind of makes me upset.
I kind of can't believe, how did he ever get that seemed crazy to me when I saw it. It was why I retweeted it.
I did see your tweet last night, And I did stop talking for 10 minutes. Like I kind of just walked around the apartment and I was like,
right.
What?
Really? I quote tweeted it with "What a career!" Because I mean,
oh yeah,
undrafted street free agent without a position. Somehow plays 9 years and earns 60. I mean, I know after taxes, but whatever. $63 million is like that seems bananas.
It's him, and he like adds you right because the non-position thing, like he had like 6 receiving touchdowns in 2016. He has like none or 2017, 2018, none the next year. Like it's so weird. He was a tight end for a little while.
Right.
It's him and then Kirk Cousins that like have like fully robbed NFL teams, and you just like you're going to Canton for that. Your agent's pen is going into Canton when you're all said and done.
You mentioned Cousins real quick, and then I'll squeeze a couple calls in here. Did you see the clip? There was a clip I saw of Cousins today running. I don't know in hockey we'd call them gassers. Like they're just running sprints. They're like, running to the 20 and then turning around and running back to the 40, like that kind of thing, just shuttle runs type stuff. And he is so far behind everyone else.
It's so
almost good. Right away. And whoever like quote tweeted was like, Kirk Cousins is way faster than you are. If you've ever wondered what you'd look like on the field with NFL players, imagine this, because here's an actual NFL player, and he looks like you would look out there.
It's the best thing about the older quarterback position, where it's a lot like golf. You're like, oh, that's me. That's me out there. He's struggling. He's huffing and puffing. And you're just like, good for him. What a guy to go out there.
I said to Mike last week, we were watching the 3M, the Minnesota tournament, was on here Thursday and Friday. And Scheffler, at one point, from like 70 or 80 yards out, just left a pitch shot 10 yards short of the green. And I don't yell I try not to anyway, like get upset outwardly on the golf course, but in my head, I'll be like, you stupid, in my brain, right? And I said to Mike, I got to remember the next time that happens, which it happened on Sunday. It happened again yesterday. Scheffler did it. Like, if Scheffler can do it in a tournament, I should be a little easier on myself when I leave my pitch shot 10 yards short.
Right. You have a little bit of grace where it's like, not every hole.
Right.
But a few of them will allow myself.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. Joe is first up this segment. Hi, Joe. Thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man.
All right. So, you were asking earlier, like, how do people feel about the last 5 years, given, how it's been going? And, it feels weird to say because this is like by far their most successful era of my life. I mean, I was born immediately after Music City Miracle, and they didn't end the drought till my senior year of high school. But it just sucks, losing every year. I mean, it's just kind of the legacy of Josh Allen is losing, like being the only guy to lose to the same team in the postseason 4 times. His most famous career moment is like the most famous loss ever, the 13-second game. It sucks that that's what it is as of now. I mean, they could change it, all it takes the win once and it all changes, but it's just so draining. Like I don't look back fondly on I look at it as a waste. Like they're wasting the best quarterback I've ever seen.
Well, I can't argue with wasting the best quarterback you've ever seen because they have not won yet, but I don't feel like the overall has been a waste, and I hope you dig out of that over the next 6 weeks or so because the season's coming, and I don't know, maybe it'll be the one. So chin up. All right, thank you for the call. Hit up a timeout here. Mike's away. I'm the Bulldog. This is WGR. Yeah, I mean, you're just slaying me today in there, Zach, with the jams. Really enjoying it. Let's see what Larry has to say here. Larry, thank you for calling. You're on WGR.
Bulldog, real quick on Taysom Hill, you got me all excited talking about him. So I'd love to bring him in. I'd love to bring him in for a couple of reasons. Number one, our backup QB situation. I know it's the backup QB, but it's so uninspired and frankly can't get any worse. I'd love to get some competition in there. Number two, there's been so much discourse, especially the past 2 years, about the number of hits Josh is taking. We've got the tush push pretty much down to a science. I know Josh is a huge part of that, but maybe bring him in, let him run the tush push a little bit in the regular season, see how it works out, reduce some hits on Josh. He's an electric player. He's got a nose for the end zone. 63 mil throughout his career, good for him. I'm not talking about any crazy money, but I'd love to see them bring him in.
Okay, I was not expecting that at all. I don't hate the tush push idea, but if I were gonna try to upgrade my backup quarterback, I would consider someone who could throw. I think does that seem reasonable?
I think that's fair.
I feel like that's reasonable. Could you? Right? So, yeah. Easy enough guy to root for, no question. It is mine. I echo that. I tweeted, "What a career!" I mean, it's incredible to me that being sort of the Swiss Army knife that he was, because guys like that it feels like guys like that almost never get paid. They're just gonna one team will use them up, and they're like, we're on to somebody else. And then he goes somewhere else and does the same thing. And it's always just sort of the fact that he played 9 years in one place and got paid that much is credit to him for being able to lean into that role and be as versatile as he was. But I'm a no on extending an invite to him. I don't think I really need it. We'll get back into some Bills-specific conversation right after this. Sal Capaccio coming up.